David Hume. If you were a philosopher back in the 18th century, this was the guy who showed up and basically flipped the table on everything you thought you knew. We're talking God, morality, even how your own mind works. So let's dive into the thinking of one of history's most brilliant and, yeah, disruptive minds.
So to really get Hume, we have to start with this one massive question, one that he wrestled with his whole life, and it's going to frame everything we talk about today. When it comes to your most profound beliefs, what's really in the driver's seat? Is it your rational, logical mind, or is it your gut feeling?
You see, for Hume, this wasn't some casual thought experiment. He saw our whole way of understanding the world as this battleground between two huge forces. On one side, you've got reason. It's all cool, calculating, dealing in proofs, and what he called abstruse philosophy, which really is just a fancy way of saying super complex, hard to understand stuff. And on the other side, you've got feeling, the world of emotions, gut feelings, and these powerful sensory impressions that actually guide how we live our lives. This is the core conflict we're going to unpack.
All right, so here's our game plan. We'll kick things off with that big clash, reason versus feeling. Then we'll see how Hume takes that idea and applies it to, the existence of God. From there, we'll get into the psychology of why we believe what we believe and where our morality really comes from. We'll look at his big idea of sympathy, and finally, wrap up with the massive legacy he left behind. You gotta remember, Hume was writing during the Enlightenment, which everyone called the Age of Reason. Thinkers like John Locke were convinced that reason was the ultimate tool for figuring everything out. But then Hume comes along and pretty much challenges that entire idea. He argued that our feelings, our passions, they play a much, much bigger role than anyone was willing to admit.
So let's see how he puts this into practice with one of the biggest topics of all, religion. Hume is famous for his critique of the arguments for God's existence. But what's so fascinating is that his critique wasn't really about faith. It was all about the logic.
Hume took a hard look at all the classic logical proofs for God, the arguments from design, from first cause, and he came to a pretty blunt conclusion. As arguments, they just fail. He pointed out that the starting points, the premises, they don't actually logically lead you to the conclusion. You can't use pure reason alone to prove that a perfect creator exists. The math just doesn't add up. And this is classic Hume. Right after he dismantles the logic, he makes this really interesting concession. He basically says, okay, the logical proof isn't there, but when we look at the incredible order and complexity in nature, it leaves this powerful impression on us. It feels like there's a designer. So while the logical case falls apart, he totally gets that the psychological push towards belief is very, very real.
And that's the pivot. It's brilliant. If our belief in God doesn't come from some airtight logical argument, then where does it come from? Hume completely shifts the conversation away from the logic of belief and starts digging into the psychology of it, asking how these ideas pop up naturally inside the human mind. He argued that the very first form of religion was probably polytheism, belief in many gods. And he lays out this clear psychological process. It starts with universal human worries, right? The need for food, for safety, for peace. Then, powerful things happen in nature, a huge storm, a great harvest, and these events create strong emotional impressions that we link to our worries. This leads people to imagine some kind of specific cause or being behind it all. So if you've got a lot of different worries and a lot of different powerful impressions, well, you end up with a lot of different gods. For Hume, it was a totally natural psychological step. He saw monotheism, the belief in one God, as something that came along much later. It's what happens when people start to think more rationally, more abstractly, about the unity of nature as a whole system. But Hume argued, because that idea is more of a head thing than a gut thing, it just doesn't have the same raw psychological punch as polytheism, which is born right out of our deepest fears and hopes. Okay, so now we're going to take that exact same idea, reason versus feeling, and plug it directly into his thoughts on ethics. He asks this same basic question: where does our morality come from? Is our sense of right and wrong something we figure out with cold, hard logic, or is it something we feel deep down? And believe me, this was the hot debate of his time. On one side, you had thinkers like John Locke, who argued that moral truths were like math problems. You could prove them with reason. But on the other side, you had guys like Shaftesbury, who said, no, morality is more like art or beauty. It's a matter of taste, of feeling. Hume, as usual, tries to find a more nuanced path. Wow, Hume wasn't saying reason is useless. Not at all. He said it's a crucial tool.
Reason can help us define what we're talking about, like what is justice? It can lay out the objective facts of what's happening. And super importantly, it can analyze what's likely to happen if we do one thing versus another, what we'd now call its utility.
And this is absolutely key to understanding Hume. Reason all by itself is powerless. It can tell you all the facts about why a certain food is healthy, but it can't make you want to eat it. It can describe a crime in perfect detail, but it can't give you that feeling of disapproval that is the very heart of a moral judgment. Reason is the map for sure, but our feelings are the engine.
All right, so if feeling is the engine that drives us, what's the fuel? Well, for Hume, the absolute core of our moral life is this natural, powerful feeling he called sympathy. This is his big positive idea for where our sense of goodness actually comes from.
And he believed it works kind of like a chain reaction. First, we see someone else's situation and we recognize a resemblance to something we've experienced ourselves. That recognition immediately triggers sympathy. We start to feel a version of their pleasure or their pain. That feeling of sympathy then naturally sparks a sense of benevolence. We just want them to be okay. And all of that leads us to approve of actions that are useful and beneficial not just for them, but for everyone.
So what does all this lead to? Well, it leads to a pretty radical idea known as ethical subjectivism. It means that when we say something like murder is wrong, Hume argues we're not stating an objective fact about the world, like saying that rock is heavy. What we're actually doing is expressing our own internal feeling, our sentiment of disapproval towards that act. For Hume, morality isn't written in the stars, it's written in our hearts.
So, what's the big takeaway here? What's Hume's lasting impact? Honestly, it is almost impossible to overstate it. Hume didn't just answer old questions, he basically changed the entire set of questions that philosophers would be arguing about for the next 2 centuries. Just look at this list. The problem of evil, the tug-of-war between reason and emotion in our beliefs, whether a religious experience counts as evidence, the link between religion and morality. These are the central debates in the philosophy of religion today, and Hume forced every single one of them right into the spotlight. In fact, the scholar Arthur Holmes put it perfectly. He said, the whole agenda that you get into in the philosophy of religion course really is an agenda that comes out of Hume's dialogues. I mean, how clear is that? He basically wrote the syllabus for everyone who came after him. And that's really the ultimate takeaway. Hume's great big shift was to bring philosophy down from the clouds of abstract logic and ground it right here on Earth, in the messy, complicated, fascinating reality of human psychology. He forced us to stop looking for external proofs out there and to start looking at the internal machinery of our own minds. So in the end, he makes this powerful case that our feelings, our impressions, our gut instincts, those are our ultimate guides through life. Reason is just the helpful navigator sitting in the passenger seat. And that leaves us with a final question to think about. In your own life, when it really counts, what do you trust more, your calculations or your convictions?